So Spotify just announced some massive changes for how it's going to be handling royalties starting in Q1 2024. So as of recording this video, only a couple months away, they're changing everything about their royalty model with three very specific ways. And the first is pretty controversial, and I'm not even sure how I feel about it yet. And this is one you probably already heard headlines about already, where they're going to introduce a minimum threshold of streams annually. If you don't have 1,000 streams in your song, you're not going to make anything off of royalties. Specifically, you have to have at least 1,000 streams per year on a song for that song to generate any royalties. Now, Spotify's argument for this is if you're not hitting that, you're not what they call a real artist or true artist. And as much as that hurts to say and hear, there is some valid points to this. So before you burn me at the stake, I want to explain kind of why I think part of this makes sense, and then also why I also don't like this at the same time. But please let me know in the comments below what you think about this. So the reason why I think Spotify is kind of right about this is that if you're not hitting 1,000 streams in your song in a year, you're clearly not relying on streaming revenue in any kind of significant way, right? You're not paying your bills with this. You're not relying on it. You don't take streaming too seriously, at least you don't yet. You're probably a new artist. You're a developing artist for sure. So for you to not make money off of that, it's not really going to hurt you. And in fact, in many cases, you might not see that money anyways, because your distributor probably has a payment threshold, meaning even if you make 10 cents a month off of your song, your distributor might only allow you to cash out when you have $1, $5, or $10, $25 increments. So you might have to have that money sit in a bank account for like a year or 2 years, 3 years, etc., before you can cash out anyways. So for a lot of these people who aren't hitting this isn't going to hurt them whatsoever. But on the flip side, the argument against it that I also feel is that in a way, this is like Spotify stealing money from the poor and giving it to the rich. Because if you're making that, you're at the lower end of Spotify's income, right? That's the whole point of this. You're in the bottom 0.5% of the stream pool, and they're taking that money away from you and distributing it to the essentially wealthiest 99.5%. And so there's arguments for and against it. I think some type of threshold does make sense on Spotify because YouTube has a threshold system as well. And it's uniform for everyone. You have to have at least 4,000 watch time hours per year in addition to 1,000 subscribers before you can make any money on YouTube. And even if you have less than that, it doesn't really hurt because even if, let's say you had 3,000 watch time hours, if you were making the money from the ad revenue from YouTube, you'd be making like $1 a month, if that, depending on your niche and all that. The thing with this is that it's not just a threshold for your profile, it's a threshold on every song and it's per year. So in my opinion, what a better model would have been is something like you have to have 1,000 listeners over the course of a year. That's a pretty low bar that most people can handle. And maybe even if it was 5,000 over the course of the year, that's still a pretty low bar. And it's a lot less hectic to track and be like, which songs have less than 1,000 streams? And I don't know, this seems a little more overcomplicated and overly strict in a way that I just don't think it has to be like this. So Spotify says that this change will not impact 99.5% of stream share. Now, that does not mean that it won't impact 99.5% of artists. Stream share is not the same as artist or streams. This is effectively like the biggest artists generate the most amount of stream share, right? So that being said, the amount of money we're talking about on per song, per artist basis is incredibly small, like pennies per song. But with a system where there's 100,000 tracks being uploaded a day, this adds up to a lot of money. And they think it'll generate tens of millions of dollars a year that will be taken away from those less serious artists and given to the artists that actually rely on this money or actually make some type of decent money on the platform. So that's, there's some push and pull with both aspects of this. But let me know what you think about it in the comments. And I want to be clear about this because every time I talk about Spotify changing some things and things being good or bad, people think that this is a way for Spotify to make more money off of artists. They're not making any more money off of this. I mean, perhaps behind the scenes, they're doing some shady stuff, but at least for taking them at their face value, they're saying that all this extra money that's generated that they're not paying out is 100% of it going directly back into the artist. So they're not making more money off of this. They're just redistributing the wealth, so to speak. Now, these next 2 points are things that I think everyone's going to agree with. There are some nuances to it that we'll have to learn about when they actually get implemented, but I think everyone's going to like this. So the first one here is that they want to financially penalize distributors of music and labels when fraudulent activity is detected on music that they've uploaded to Spotify. And if you don't know, a lot of artists, indie and major, use bots and click farms to artificially increase their stream count. There have been cases where like people have laundered money through Spotify because they'll buy bots to pay people and launder the money. That whatever. It's a crazy thing. You can watch my video on bots right here if you want to see why they're bad and why you shouldn't use bots for getting more numbers on your music. But now they're going to financially penalize it, which I think is a great thing because up till now there hasn't really been too much of a disincentive or whatever the word would be for preventing, especially major label artists, from not just botting their music and pumping money out of the system. Because major artists, they're not going to get banned. They never really have. And they just continue to use bots to artificially increase their streams. They're already getting a ton of real people. So most of their streaming volume is real, but they're still using a ton of bots to increase their stream count compared to indie artists. And when these artists get caught, they get a little bit of bad press, and then everyone just forgets that it ever happened and nothing ever really happened. So this gives labels an actual financial penalty if they're caught fluffing up their numbers. Now, what this also means is that distributors are going to have to be more strict on what they do with artists that are caught botting. Now, if you don't know, I actually own a music distribution company. I haven't talked about it too much. It's called Melodist. I'll have a link in the description if you want to check it out. But recently we had someone sign up, and from day one, they were uploading like 10, 20 songs a day, which is very suspicious. So someone from our distribution team said, hey, do you know this person? Do you know what they're doing? And I said, no. So we looked inside their Spotify for artists because as the distributor, we can just go in and take a peek when things like this happen. And it was just so obviously fake, like 100% fake. No doubt in my mind, no doubt in the team's mind that it was just all BS. So this is against our terms of service. You're not allowed to do it through our platform, but also we can get in trouble if we have too many artists that are doing this. So we had to tell this artist, like, you're banned from using our platform. And that's something that all distributors have to do. And it's going to get harder if there's a financial penalty for doing that, because the distributor's going to be even more strict about it. Now, that's all great. I think that's all good. But what happens if people target other artists with fake stuff? Already, right now, there's scams and companies going around where they just send bots to your music without your permission, without your will. You never paid for it. You never initiated it. They're just sending bots on your music. So what happens if you just hate someone in your local scene and you just send like 100,000 streams of bots to their music? How does Spotify detect that it was them that initiated it, right? There's no way. In my mind, I don't know how they would do it. Now, it's not my job to figure it out. It's Spotify's job to figure it out. But I'm really worried that in the interim of all this happening, there's going to be a lot of people who are getting banned from distributors or whatever because of someone else targeting their profile. And the other thing is, what happens if distributors start saying, well, we can pass those fines on to you? Then they might start taking your royalties from you. And also, we don't know how big these fines are, right? If a label sees these fines as just an operational expense or a write-off or something, they're not going to do it, right? There's big companies around the world who pollute, even though they know there's fines, because they make so much money just polluting and paying the fines compared to actually having to comply with the law. This could be the same thing. If the fine is too low, it only deters the smaller artists from breaking the rules, and it doesn't deter the bigger problem, which is the major artists who are breaking the rules. And this third point is a similar kind of nuance. At first, you're going to be like, this is great. And what it is that they're introducing a minimum length of time that non-music noise tracks have to be streamed in order to generate royalties. And if you don't know what this is, I've actually known several people that do this, and I've helped some of them even promote it. They upload rain sounds and white noise and what have you. That's all like 35 seconds or 45 seconds long. They'll throw it in a gigantic playlist that's 12 hours long. They'll send ad traffic to it or whatever and make a ton of money, because if you can send one person to this playlist and they listen all night while they're sleeping, you can actually get a lot of streams on it because your songs are only like 35 seconds long. Since a stream is triggered after 30 seconds, you make money. You make basically 2 streams per minute. Multiply that over the course of an 8-hour sleeping session, and you actually have a ton of streams by the end of the night. Now, most of this non-music noise stuff is just a cash grab, and this is what they're trying to target, but they're not changing the definition of a stream. A stream is still going to be 30 seconds. So how does Spotify determine what is a non-music noise track? Because they have to be able to detect, oh, this is not music, therefore it doesn't qualify for a 30-second stream. And I already know people who upload sleeping music it's actual music. It's not noise music. It's not white noise. It's actually composed instrumental music. And they kind of get bundled in with this noise stuff because their name or their artist profile is kind of generic, like a noise thing would be. And they're pumping out hundreds of songs a year. But it is music. It's real music that they've actually composed, and they spend a ton of time working on it. But when they go to use discovery mode or Spotify Marquee, they start certain songs aren't eligible, or the whole artist profiles that they have are not eligible to use certain tools, or all of a sudden they're getting kicked out of algorithmic playlists in very weird ways because they're getting bundled in with this. So what happens if you're a real music artist, but you're doing some kind of experimental noise music or whatever, you have intermission tracks on a record, and it's getting classified as noise music? You're getting screwed because of Spotify's algorithm incorrectly categorizing you as a non-music noise artist. So with these three changes, the minimum threshold, the financial penalizing for fake stuff, and the minimum length for non-music noise tracks, Spotify expects that they can give artists an extra $1 billion over the next 5 years. And again, this isn't money that Spotify is just taking. This is $1 billion that's going back to what they consider real working artists. Again, who is to say what is a real artist and what is real music and what is not? Obviously, the bot stuff is a no-brainer, but there's all these nuances that we don't know yet. Like, for example, what is a year? Is a year from when the song comes out to 12 months later? Or is it a fiscal year? Or is it a calendar year? And how do they decide if a song was previously making royalties, but now it's a new year? Do they, even though it's on pace to hit 1,000 of the year, do they make royalties, or does it not make anything until later in the year? These are all things that we don't know. So if you're one of those artists getting less than 1,000 streams on your songs, you should check out this video on how to get 1 million streams in your first year as an artist on Spotify. But if you prefer a much more organized course for how to use Facebook ads to promote your music on Spotify, you should check out my course, Spotify Growth Machine, right here. Or if you'd rather my team do it for you, I do have an ad agency. You can find a link in the description. And I also have a new playlisting company and YouTube promotion service you can find in the description as well. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.